Good morning, Nigeria. Good morning, viewers all over the world. Thank you for joining us once again on Morning Spring. This is Western Spring Television. We do this every day where we bring you the news. We start with the newspaper reviews. Then we go into critical conversations that shape our nations. And that's what we do here every weekday on Western Spring Television. Emeka Daniel is my name. I mean, it's been an eventful week, and thank God it's Friday, like we always say. It's a beautiful day, and it promises to be a wonderful show. And of course, I'm not alone in the studio this morning. Good morning, Femi.
Morning, Daniel. How are you? Thank God it's Friday.
Great. How do you do?
Yeah, how do you do as well? I will thank God for today. It's the day after the Democracy Day, and not just an eventful week. It was an eventful week. Eventful day. Yesterday marking the June 12 Democracy Day for this year, and the president gave a speech and all of those things. And Nigerians are dissecting what he has spoken about, decisions he has made, honors rolled out, explanations made on the raging issues and all of those things. But firstly, I am Femi Ojo, and it brings me great pleasure to welcome you today on Morning Spring as my colleague ours, and it's going to be a very great one as well. And on the program, you know what we do here, very critical and open, frank conversations about everything that matters. And that is why we are here to do that again. We look at the papers, firstly, headlines from various dailies, and then we then get talking about these issues. But there is a lot to talk about.
Absolutely, quite a lot. And just yesterday, quite an unfortunate incident. It was a black day in history for people in India. All but one of 242 passengers on board a London-bound flight died in a plane crash. The plane crashed shortly after takeoff in Ahmedabad. There's a lone survivor, a British national, Vishwas Kumar Ramesh, who survived. I mean, how lucky can a man get? How lucky? The sole survivor, 241 passengers died in that crash, but the British national survived. And his brother is saying he has no idea how he survived. He sat in seat 11A of that flight. Interestingly, that plane crashed into a residential area. There's a doctor's hostel around there, so a lot of medical students are injured, and some actually died. Some people also died on ground. We are yet to get, the real figures of those who died on ground. But quite unfortunate, 241 aboard that flight died when the plane crashed shortly after takeoff. And Prime Minister Narendra Modi has visited the site, and also Tata Group has promised, compensation of £86,000 to family members of the deceased. To each of them, that's roughly about $116,000 each for them. But again, no amount of money can bring back the dead. So quite an unfortunate one right there for India yesterday.
Right, and it speaks to the fickle nature of life. It could just, vaporize away in a minute. And I saw the footage, amateur footage of, just less than a minute, actually, or less than 2 minutes of takeoff. After the runway, the takeoff, and the thing didn't even get balanced in the air. Right, it didn't go all through all those high meters, thousands of meters up the sky before landing. But then it is what it is. Sad one there. And just like I said, I was at a program years ago when somebody said, if you're a frequent air traveler, you mustn't be keeping malice against anybody. Right, it's a religious organization, and what he meant was everything could just end.
Honestly.
Because the casualty from a plane crash is always massive.
Absolutely.
And 2 or 3 things. The speed is always very strong. Number 2, the height in which that bird will drop is too high. And the impact on landing, most of the times, more often than not, is always in fire, in flames. And these are some of the issues. But then Our heart and thoughts are with those that have suffered this casualty. But it's not just about that. Let's bring it home. The president was at the National Assembly yesterday, and almost all the members of the National Assembly were there. There wasn't any roll call, but that was a full house. Yesterday, we've seen that footage. And of course, members of the cabinet, governors were there, left their state to come to at least I saw Jide Sanwo-Olu there in Abuja. Many things were said by Mr. President, in which you are going to look into in the course of the program today. But many things stand out, or stood out, and still stands out as well. And it is those honors that were rolled out for the people who had one of the things to do. The democracy itself, as before June 12 and after June 12, those who struggled for it, and many of them have paid the supreme price. They were posthumously honored. And some of them that are still alive were given national honor.
Yeah, talking about the honors, of course, the Ogoni 9 got posthumous honors. People like MK Abiola got posthumous honor, and quite a lot of other people. But very
MK Abiola has
striking.
been honored before.
Yeah, he got honored again. Yeah. Oh, his wife, Kudirat. Okay. Then quite striking for me was the national honor conferred on Professor Wole Soyinka.
Yeah.
He got a GCON. I mean, that's the second highest honor in the land. Grand Commander of the Order of Niger. That's quite a huge one. Also, Godswill Akpabio also got GCON. Then
he has gotten his before. It was only decorated yesterday.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. Immediately, the president came. He bestowed the honor on Godswill Akpabio, Tajuddin Abbas, and Kudirat Kekere.
Yeah, so he got it officially yesterday.
Yeah, officially yesterday. Many presidents, Humphrey Nwusu, finally.
Yeah, he got the honor.
Recognized and honored.
Yeah, it was causing an issue on the floor of the House before now.
Several. In the same, and it was, ironically, the president has spoken, so there's nothing you could do. The same guys who shouted it down were there yesterday, that you could not do anything. That was a presidential speech and honor. And the president had the prerogative, he has the powers to do all of those things. That was prerogative of mercy, again, extended to, some persons. And we learned that even yesterday, some of those high political office holders have been pardoned. Like, if you remember, Farouk Lawan, actually, the man who was involved in that bribery saga in the Otedala oil investigation thing. And these are some of the things as well that we are seeing at this time. But a lot to really talk about. And he's, you don't want to get into the speech about his position on opposition. And all of those.
No, definitely. That's interesting. We have to talk about that. There's a clip on that. Definitely.
We'll look into that.
We'll look into that in the course of the program.
That's why I don't want us to open it
now. Exactly.
It's a lot and it's interesting.
Absolutely.
Very interesting.
As a president, he's the president of Nigeria. Yeah. And personally, I'm not his fan. I'm not in support of most of his policies. But I try to separate my opinion from the facts. So there's some of the things he said were actually facts. Some of the things he said concerning opposition are the facts. And we'll be looking at that in the course of the program. Quite interesting, quite humorous. I mean, quite
humorous as well. And the conduct of, the people that were there, I don't get these. Maybe is he excitement or is he psychophancy? At every lines that the president makes, there were applause and applause and applause. At some point when you talked about that opposition thing, and he said, he enjoyed.
He used a lot of sarcasm there.
And the next thing was, on your mandate, we shall stand. What is going on? Yeah, this is not an APC meeting. This is not. That wasn't a political gathering. It was supposed to be a serious moment in the annals of our nation. It's a June 12, talking about democracy. It wasn't a campaign, not a gathering, not, and the next thing, you remember, the last time was at the National Assembly.
Absolutely,
after the national anthem, your mandate, we shall stand, was played. That's supposed to be a business of the government. By the way you are, it was more like a State of the Union address.
It shows you how much people.
And it was applause and laughter and all of those things.
And the thing is, this man, the president, is not compelling them to do any of that.
Well, he wasn't even laughing when he spoke about some of those things. It just psychophancy taking too far.
So he's playing his
Everybody was giggling and chuckling.
Honestly, Mr. President,
and applauding.
With all due respect, he's a master strategist and he's playing his game so well. He's on top of his game. So that's just because he's not forcing anyone to do anything.
One thing that I realized yesterday was at that meeting, the opposition members were there. They are members of the National Assembly. And Bukola Saraki was there. I saw him there. So when the president was talking about the opposition and all of those things, the camera was on him. And it was a lot. But then we take a quick break right now. When we return, we go straight right to the papers. Stay with us. All right, let's start with the Guardian newspaper for today. June 12, President, Nigerians differ on progress, impact 32 years after. President, Nigerians differ on progress, impact 32 years after. And of course, Democracy Day, Tinubu honors Alex Ibru, Kudirat, Nwosu, Akinyemi, others with national awards. And you have the pictures of those, some of those that were honored there yesterday. And International Day, emergency services at risk, over 80% blood shortage in hospitals, 80% shortage in hospitals. And varsities must score 70% in 4 key areas to get full NUC accreditation, says federal government. Well, whatever it is, I think Nigerians are wary of the mushroom growth of many so-called universities springing up all over the place. And okay, now that we are having these being said, varsities must score 70% in 4 key areas to get full NUC accreditation, says federal government. I'm not sure that should be new. There should be parameters.
Absolutely.
That should be looked into before licenses are granted, not just at the breadth of an application or who knows who, and then the thing is just approved like that.
Yeah, and again, I think sometimes in many cases we are not getting it right here, because we've seen many cases where students will go to a school in the middle of their course, course after spending a couple of years, they get to hear that the program is not accredited. So why should you allow an institution to run a program not accredited in the first place? So I think they need to do more in terms of regulation, just to make sure that we have a sane environment in the educational system.
And quality in education, right, absolutely. And Abiola family seeks legislation to institutionalize June 12. Many of the Abiola family members have been talking. One of his wives spoke on a program 2 days ago who said the federal government should please help, in settling various suits that have arose in the administration of late MK Abiola's estate. And he said some of them are poor, actually. Some of the family members are poor. And for whoever who know who Abiola MK was, they have no business being poor, actually, with that level of wealth.
I'm shocked.
Different suits about family and claiming of, some inheritances are so many. And many of these infrastructures that belong to Abiola is wasting away. They are wasting away somewhere. And so many of them have been speaking about that.
He left a lot of children, and
yes, it was a big family, man, and he left a lot of
but
fortune.
Some of them are quite successful. So.
Well, those are the big ones. How about those ones that we don't know about? In fact, when he left, many persons, many women were still bringing children. This was quite a mega man, if you understand what I'm saying. And of course, apart from that, we learned the government is owing him, the family, because he was that rich that was borrowing the nation's money. And so these are some of the issues that we are seeing at this time. One or two of the children might be doing that well, but maybe not all.
Absolutely.
And earlier accuses religious leaders of feeling insecurity in Benue. One thing I've realized is this is not what we should be doing. There's been this continuous back and forth in Benue State. There is an issue. Can we please do everything to tackle it? Before it was Governor Alia having a disagreement in figure of casualty with the state police commissioner, and now it is being about the national caucus of the PDP caucus at the National Assembly granting press interview because the governor made accusation that politicians are the one fueling this. So the PDP have said you are lying.
Now it is religious leaders.
If you have proof, bring it up. I saw Abba Moro and some Samuel Otom grand press conference and say, if the governor is not lying, you should name, if you know them. Now it's about religious leaders. People are, the thing is, the problem is not going away. Absolutely. We're having disagreement. A political, from the security agencies, now religious. How is that helping anybody right now? And these are the issues. Now, windstorm kills 6, injures 30 in Taraba. Sad tale there. And NNPC remits 4.7 trillion naira as oil revenues shortfall. It's $5.7 billion. Remittance, 4.7 trillion naira. All right. And June 12, Soludo, Fashola, Jega advocate electoral reforms and national rebirth. And lastly, one passenger survives as plane crash kills.
Help them.
Exactly,
and
sir.
He made some sarcastic. Help them.
Exactly,
and
sir.
He made some sarcastic comments about them. And apparently, the opposition parties are not happy about it. So we'll look into that in the course of the program today. Quite funny, really. It was quite humorous.
It was.
So you can read up that story in the Daily Trust newspaper, on the front page of the Daily Trust newspaper this morning. Away from that, moving to the top strip of the Daily Trust newspaper. No democracy as long as Rivers is under emergency rule. That's according to Dixon. No democracy as long as Rivers is under emergency rule. And that's coming from Dixon. You find that story on page 15. Away from that, protest against hardship flops in states. Protest against hardship flops in states. Some people had planned to protest. There was supposed to be protests in about 20 states across the federation. But some of the protests actually flopped. If you want to find out why, you might want to read up that story on page 4, or page 5 rather, of the Daily Trust newspaper this morning. Away from that, 8 family members die in Zaria auto crash. 8 family members die in Zaria auto crash. Quite an unfortunate one, right there. Talking about road accidents in Nigeria. Moving to other stories, still on the front page of the Daily Trust newspaper this morning. Survivor narrates moments before crash that killed 240. Survivor narrates moments before crash that killed 240. Talk about the Air India plane crash, which occurred yesterday. The BBC reports that all but one of the 242 died. They said 241 on board were confirmed dead, and just one person survived. And the sole survivor happens to be a British national, Ramesh, who survived by, only God knows how he survived. His brother is saying he has no idea how the man survived. Quite a very lucky man right there. And talking about plane crashes, just before you were talking about it, just before we started the newspaper review, interestingly, I feel safe anytime I travel by air. I've never had that, panic. I feel air travel is one of the safest. But when we keep hearing cases of plane crashes, it's quite unfortunate. Most times, I like sitting beside the window and I just feel totally safe. I don't know why. I've never had that, fright. I just feel so safe whenever I'm on board the flight.
Whatever mode of transportation one is involved with, safety is very important.
Absolutely.
Firstly, either by road, by water, by any of those things. But then it still speaks to the uncertainty nature of life, and in which nothing is really absolute. Nothing is happening.
Honestly. Because most time people don't plan to die. You never plan. People don't plan to die.
Even people commit suicide sometimes. When the suicide don't go ahead, you will see the panic in which they experienced before. There are some persons, sadly, nobody should, by the way, who plan on dying. And when they get to the point of committing the suicide, they see that it's not as easy as they thought it would be. These are some of the issues. But then life is a risk. So let's make it count. Every moment
let's
counts.
make the best of it. Yeah. And if we would live our lives, if we live every day as if it were the last, we will actually be better people. Away from that, just below that, we see June 12, governors seek commitments to democratic ideals. June 12, governors seek commitment to democratic ideals, still on the front page of the Daily Trust newspaper this morning. And right there at the middle of the page, you see the picture of the National Assembly when the president gave that speech at the joint sitting of the National Assembly. It was quite a full house right there. And finally, from the front page of the Daily Trust newspaper, on the bottom strip, Tinubu honors Yaradua, Balarabe Musa, Kudirat Abiola, Shoyinka, others. Tinubu honors Yaradua, Balarabe Musa, Kudirat Abiola, Shoyinka, others. You find details of that story on page 6 of the Daily Trust newspaper. And that'll be all from the front page of the Daily Trust newspaper this morning.
All right, from the Daily Trust newspaper, let's look at what the nation has for us. The nation, just, a quick look. Honors for heroes. Honors for heroes. Posthumous award for Kudirat Arodua Saruwiwa, Shoyinka, Ubasani, Akinyemi, Dari. Others get national recognition for pro-democracy actions. And Tinubu affirms commitment to multi-party politics. And Nigeria meets 97% of OPEC output quota. A man survives 260 killed in London-bound Indian plane crash. Man survives 260 killed in London-bound Indian plane crash. All right, and about Nigeria meeting 97% of OPEC output quota. I think that sounds like good news, actually.
Absolutely.
That means we're
97%.
We're improving. We can do a lot more better. But talking about the posthumous awards for Kudirat, and, not just those persons who carried placards, who made active movements and all of those things, there were journalists as well who are very vocal. There is Nosai Gebo, a very top-class veteran. In fact, those people that, if you remember the Tell magazine, it was a thorn in the flesh of the military those days. And
absolutely.
It was, Tell magazine and Newswatch.
Whatever happened to Tell magazine?
Well, I wouldn't know. Life happened, and, many of their publishers definitely had the toughest. Many of the publishers of these magazines, and many of them have been identified and honored in that day's latest roll call, including Bayo Onanuga as well. For whatever it is, he paid his due during those times. Right. There's been a journalist, actually. He was a publisher of PM News.
How about Daily Momodu?
Well, maybe the list cannot be all-encompassing at some point. Somebody mentioned even Showore as well. Paid his due. He was an active union leader right then in Lagos. Exactly. At that time, very young, but he has been activism for long.
How on earth do you expect?
Well, if it's about democracy, it doesn't matter. It should not matter, actually. But the skepticism about it.
Well, politics will come into it, of course.
Well, but some person said the skepticism is about even if Yele Showore, was mentioned to be honored, the whole thing could all embarrassing. Absolutely. Because a yellow show could actually flip it over and make a mess of anybody who tries to bring in him, and the whole thing will be boomerang.
Showore attacks anyone, anywhere, at any time.
Does he want to make
someone who sat in a governor's seat at a function, at an event, and refused and caused a scene.
And he said was the first to be there. And nobody is above anybody.
So that's Showore for you.
So imagine that even if the government of the day, by the way, it shouldn't matter, even if that person or those people are not agreeing with you right now, that doesn't erase the fact that they played a part at some point that got us here. Either as a student union leader, all those persons, Ubasani was part of them, and he was honored. He has been honored as well, and many persons, and maybe...
Well, Ubasani has been campaigning for Tinubu, for God's sake. He's been singing the praises of the president.
Not just because of that. The history of these people, what they have done irrespective of where they are right now, can never be erased.
Absolutely.
In as much they have been, even if they are in National Conscience Party or defunct SDP or the current SDP or any other political party, or they don't even see eye to eye. In as much history cannot forget.
Yeah, the honor should be objective, exactly.
That is it. You can't take it away.
Yeah.
They have done it, they have done it.
Absolutely.
Right. And these are some of those issues that we are seeing. And another one, Nigeria meets 97 quota. I think that's a good news, actually. And it shouldn't just be about gloom and doom and destruction and complaints every time. But then we have to do more. I think we have one more paper today.
Yeah, that takes us to the front page of the Punch newspaper this morning. Knox, kudos, sustainable honors June 12 heroes. Knox, kudos, sustainable honors June 12 heroes. Mr. President likes to call them heroes. Call them heroes in his speech right there. With a rider, Shoyinka, 58 others honored. And then also we have Saruwiwa, Ogoni 8, altogether making the Ogoni 9, pardoned. Then we have critics flay president for Umar Odumakin, other omissions. Yeah, talking about omissions, like you said, not everyone will make that list. So some people have started criticizing him for omission of Odumaki, Umar, and others. But again, it's not a one-time thing. People can always be honored, I mean, over the time. So you don't expect to see everyone on that list all at once. So perhaps they might just get their own national honors. It will be their turn later. So that's what some will say anyway. Away from that, I'm still on the front page of the Punch newspaper this morning. Democracy Day fireworks. Tinubu opposition trade blows. Democracy Day fireworks. Tinubu opposition trade blows. You find that story on page 2. Still talking about the comments Mr. President made about the opposition. We're going to take a look at that in the course of the program this morning. And finally, from the front page of the Punch newspaper this morning, we have this story just below that. Protesters, APC supporters hold parallel rallies in Lagos, Abuja. Protesters, APC supporters hold parallel rallies in Lagos, Abuja. You find details of that story on page 10 of the Punch newspaper. And that'll be all from the front page of the Punch newspaper this morning. And that also brings us to the conclusion of the newspaper review segment of the show. We'll take a short break. When we return, the program continues. Stay with us.